What's good in the hood, YouTube? This is Crazy Sarah, so I want to bring another video. Today I'm bringing a video on Uchuu Sentai Kyuranger, episode 12 now. Yeah, 12 episodes in. Pretty awesome, I would say. So I wanted to talk about this episode. This is for the episode called The 11 Ultimate Stars. So this episode is pretty cool because it's very conclusive of this story arc. Yes, this is the conclusion of the story arc focused on Ikigan and all that kind of stuff. But we'll get into it. What ends up happening. So let's start off with the episode. Previously, as we know, Lucky had trouble with his luck, and we did see a little clip showcasing some proof of him and most likely his poor past. So now this episode does explain that and kind of goes deeper into him returning back to the side of being of feeling lucky and stuff like that, and being himself. So what happens is that they end up discussing things after seeing how bad the situation was fighting Ikigan when it came to Lucky. And the thing is that what ends up occurring is that again they're trying to get the Pupus Kyotama back from Ikigan, and the thing is that they realize is that they noticed that Ikigan's design has these crystals on him. These crystals are supposedly maybe his eyes that allow him to see where all the attacks are coming from. But the thing is, they're not sure whether or not that's true, but they assume that it might be the case. So what happens is that they then decide to do the Q-let. And the thing is that this time, and this is the only time it's ever happened so far in the show, keep in mind, this is episode 12 and they haven't done this once, Lucky isn't chosen during the Q-let, which is a big deal. And this kind of makes him feel bad and feel, like it's like it makes him feel like I'm nothing now. And the thing is that Garu kind of gets annoyed at him and is like, "Come on, Lucky, that's not, he doesn't feel like that's how he should be acting or whatever." And the reason why Garu is so important in this case is because Lucky's the reason why Garu went out of his way to fight and be like that one member of his group that managed to live on and be a warrior and fight against dark matter. Because remember, his whole entire race was basically wiped out. So the thing is that this time who's chosen is Garu, Hammy, Balance, Nagare, and Stinger. So those 5 are chosen. They go down to fight Ikigan, and they're going to test out whether or not the eye theory is true or not. So they end up doing different attacks, and they're doing not the best ever. But then what happens is that Show sends down the serpent or the heavy Kyotama, which is like some snakes or whatever, and it's this Kyotama that allows him to create multiple snakes that go all over the place. And the idea is that this allows them to see what happens when the snakes appear, which is that suddenly all the crystals start flashing as they go around, and that basically gives him the hint that yes, it must be the case. It must be that those eyes are what he has and what we have to deal with. And so then at that point he requests all of them to return back, the 5 of them, and that's when he says, "Good news, everybody, I have a pretty good idea of what's going on." And they realize that apparently there are 10 eyes, at least that's what they think, from these crystals. So because of that, they realize that there's 10 eyes and there's 11 of them. Perfect. Great odds for them. They can get in one good attack each time, regardless. Not the best, but you get the point. So then what happens is that they then realize they have to do this, but Lucky's not so willing to join them because he feels like he wouldn't really help overall. Thing is that then this leads to Show going to Lucky after the fact and trying to talk to him, and Lucky explains how he was born on a planet where he ended up getting separated from his parents, and his parents supposedly died in a fire, and we saw him, and it looks like he must have been some sort of prince or someone that must have been from some, or I don't even know, but he looks like he's wealthy, or he must have had some sort of wealth to him. But the idea is that his family was lost in a fire, and then he was put on an escape pod, brought to the planet Luth. It could be Leo, but the way that they pronounced it was like Luth or whatever. So the thing was is that, and that's where he grew up. So he feels like he's never really been lucky. He's just wanted to say that. And the thing is that eventually Garo appears, and Garo beats him up, tries to punch him and everything. He tries to get him across, like, we know that you lost. I know you lost one match, but you know what? That's not that shouldn't break you. You're more than that, and it's worth testing your luck again, because you're the reason why a lot of us fight, and we all believe in you so much so. And so he brings up this 100 point, and he punches him at least twice or so, really hard, just to really get it across to him that, like, he's really serious about everything. And so the thing is that then afterwards, Lucky's just beaten up a bunch, but then the other 10 go down to Earth to fight, Ichigan, trying their best, just the 10 of them, and they don't do very well. They try to do their, they try to use the Sizer Blaster attack, and Rio Commander Sho tries to use his gun weapon itself, but all the attacks miss. Ichigan manages to attack each one of them, and they just kind of all fall, and it just doesn't work out. In the meantime, what ends up happening is that he realizes that they must have figured out about his eyes or whatever, but he says that you're only partially right, because the reason why is that all the little smaller bits that are all over him that would normally just be like the tentacle like pores or whatever are really his eyes, and so he has like 20 or 30 or 40 some odd eyes, if not more than that, rather than just 10, meaning that even if they were to knock out those 10, they wouldn't have knocked out half of the overall amount of eyes. So this then leads to Lucky coming down after coming to this realization and recalling the conversation that he had with Garo, and also putting his Kyotama in the Culet, and every single time getting himself. One other thing I forgot to mention was that they end up showing the Kyuranger Kyotama. You may wonder what that is. It's a Kyotama that basically implies that if it is put out, that means that all of the Kyurangers are meant to go down for a mission. So that's cool. But anyway, I wanted to continue on and just say, so eventually Lucky does join them, but the other 10 are beaten up at this point. So then what happens is that Lucky ends up fighting them. Fighting Ichigan. In the meantime, I forgot to mention, prior to this battle, we end up hearing from Don Armage, the leader of Dark Matter, basically saying that he is brave, that the Scorpion Minister is coming down. Who exactly is the Scorpion Minister? Well, Scorpio. So we'll get to that towards the end, but I just wanted to bring that up. So what happens is that that's the reason why Medako isn't in this fight. Medako is distracted because she's supposed to go and greet the Scorpion Minister, while Ichigan deals with the Kyurangers. So the thing is that this time when Lucky fights, he ends up using the Gemini Kyotama, which allows him to duplicate himself once, and then when he duplicates himself once, he now has 2 of himself, so then he can duplicate himself again, and then he just keeps on duplicating himself until he has like 50 or 60, if not like 100 of himself, and he tries to attack all at once with the Size of Blaster attack, and he manages to take out pretty much all of Ichigan's eyes, for the most part, except for his like main frontal eyes, I guess. So what happens is that the others basically deal with, so that eventually all of them finally transform and into their Ranger forms or whatever, into their Kyuranger forms, and it's really cool seeing all 11 of them fighting at once, and so they all get to fight, and eventually they manage to take him out to the point that he has to get big. When he gets big this time, that leads to them having to summon the Ryuteo and Kirino. So what happens is that they end up fighting, and the other 3 Zords, which are obviously Washi, like the Washi Voyager, it's Kai Voyager and Tenbin Voyager or whatever, gold, silver, and pink, those Voyagers have to come down, and they fight separate, and they fight outside of the mechas, but then eventually Ikegan summons acid rain, which rains down on them and causes a lot of problems for them, but eventually they realize that they need to work together. So eventually the two, Ryuteo and Kirino, combine together to form Ryute Kirino, which is the combination of those 8 Voyagers into one mecha, which is very cool to see. It basically just makes Kirino taller and adds more firepower. So it's not like it's a insanely bizarre change, but it's one that just kind of adds a backpack and more power overall to his design. Nice overall, but it doesn't do anything outrageous, but it's fine. As far as the other 3 go, I'm sure there'll be a combination in the future, most likely, but we'll see, for all 11 of them, but hard to say. Could also be when we get the additional member, which should come, in another 10 or so episodes, most likely, but we'll see what happens. Anyway, I forgot to mention that they do get back the Hubis Kyotama, but eventually they do destroy Ikegan, and then that leads to them celebrating on the Orion, where Lucky finally is more positive. I forgot to mention this one last thing, which is the fact that he does try to bring up the idea of why being lucky is such a great thing, is that they haven't been able to live with luck, and he's trying to continue that idea of being lucky. So anyway, what ends up happening is that they finally destroy Ikegan and they celebrate, and now since he's lucky, and also on the radio or whatever that they use, it says that the Leo, regarding all the constellations, is the number 1 most lucky type constellation today. That makes him feel even better. So overall, really great stuff. And this then leads to us seeing Medako creating Scorpio. Keep in mind, Scorpio is in his monster form, not his human form that we have seen in some of the backstory images or clips that feature Scorpio and Stinger together. And it seems like he does bring up the fact that it looks like he's gonna have to fight. He's gonna have to see someone he hasn't seen in a while, referring to obviously Stinger. So then at that point we end up seeing the whole credits, the end music bit, and then it leads into what's the next episode looking like. It seems like we are going to get some fighting that's going to occur with Stinger and Scorpio, which will be very cool to see, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm sure they'll explain a lot more about the background behind Stinger, and it will be quite an interesting battle. As far as how long this saga will last with him, don't know yet. Could be 5 episodes, could be 10 episodes, we don't know exactly, but apparently there is going to be somewhat of a story arc with him, which should be very exciting to see now, since Ikegan is gone and Medako's still there, but now we have Scorpio and Medako, so it should be interesting. Hopefully soon enough we'll also get to see what Don Ramage looks like under his cloak, but that will come in time, I'm sure. Please remember to like, comment, subscribe. I know this video was actually kind of short. That's mainly because there wasn't a whole lot to this episode, so it's not like I was missing much. It's really just that this episode kind of had less of a focus on multiple stories and more of a focus on just having a straight, clear goal rather than being very expansive and wild. Personally, overall, I enjoyed this episode a lot. Not too much backstory here and there, but a lot more just kind of having a finality to Ikegan and just kind of getting things done with, which is good, and I'm glad to know that. But it will also be very interesting to see Scorpio, because he's been hyped up a bunch, and you just kind of want to wonder what's going to happen, whether or not he's going to turn good, or if he's going to stay bad, or if he's just going to be killed in the end. Any one of those options are definite possibilities. He could also potentially become Ho-Ho Soldier, maybe. at this point, I'm a little unsure, but we'll have to wait and see. Anything is possible. Again, they do have the Pupus Kiltama, so they still have to get the Vela and the Serena Kiltama in order to get Argo to be restored, so I just want to bring that up. Please remember to like, comment, subscribe. What do you guys think? Are you guys looking forward to episode 13 and finally getting to see Scorpio? Please remember, and also tell me what you guys think of the show so far. I know we're about a quarter of the way in now, which is pretty good. Obviously, that doesn't mean that we know everything that's going to happen in the show, but we have a good sense of what's going on, and I'm liking it myself a lot, and I definitely feel like it's been one of the better recent seasons, in my opinion. So please remember to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. So until then, guys, I'm Crazy Sarah, everyone, and goodbye, guys.